I'm very pleased to welcome to the show Charlie Lee, creator of Litecoin. He's a former director of engineering at Coinbase, having studied computer science at MIT. In 2011, Litecoin was created as a lower cost, faster alternative to Bitcoin. Today, it's ranked in the top 25 cryptos around the world in market cap. Very pleased to have you on the show today, Charlie. Welcome to the show. Good to see you.
Good to see you, David. Nice to be here.
I'd like to just start by getting your analysis or take on the current crypto landscape. Is the altcoin season here yet?
It's not. I mean, right now it's kind of everyone's trying to figure out whether the crypto market is going to go back to the previous high or if it's going to kind of drop lower. So it's kind of we're in a kind of intermediate state.
Right. So what would you say are the major themes for the crypto industry in 2026? Is it, especially from somebody on the inside, project leader, founder, would you say that privacy tokens are more of a thematic issue in 2026, or is it still looking forward to regulatory clarity from the government of the United States? Or do you think that Bitcoin dominance will continue rising and the other altcoins will kind of fade in irrelevance, or maybe the reverse? What do you think is going to happen in 2026?
I think, as we saw last year, privacy became a little bit of a focus. We saw quite a few privacy coins kind of get more attention. I think moving forward, I expect privacy to be a hot topic in 2026 and beyond. I think it's something that it's really important for finance. Financial privacy is, and it's always been kind of a controversial topic because government wants to regulate finance and they want to see everything. And if something is private, it makes it harder for them to track and combat money laundering. So it's going to always be a very controversial issue, but it's something I think will be pretty hot in 2026.
Okay. Before we talk about Litecoin itself, let's just talk about Bitcoin. Litecoin, well, you created Litecoin as an alternative to Bitcoin. What were some of the major problems, or I guess problems within the Bitcoin ecosystem that you wanted to solve initially?
A couple of things. One is speed of transactions. The other is the cost of transactions. So I see Litecoin as a complement to Bitcoin, where transactions are faster on Litecoin and are cheaper. And so Bitcoin would be, or is, more useful for larger payments, and Litecoin is more useful for smaller payments where speed and transaction fees are much more important.
The volatility in crypto in 2025. So Bitcoin actually underperformed the stock market, which is rare for a bull market in the stock market. So usually when we've seen bull markets, Bitcoin has outperformed. Can you maybe talk about, as an industry insider, talk about sentiment in crypto right now and why it started to lag behind tech stocks, especially in the second half of the 2025?
I don't really see a comparison between Bitcoin and stock. I think in tech stock, I think Bitcoin and crypto just does its own thing, right? So about every 4 years, there's a bull market. We're currently potentially at the end of a bull market, or potentially still in the middle. So no one knows right now.
Yeah.
But it does what it does, right? So I actually wasn't even aware that Bitcoin underperformed the stock market last year. I thought Bitcoin did pretty well, but I guess stock did better. Yeah.
Okay. Let's just take this piece of news as an example of where the industry may be headed. So Litecoin, it says, this is the title of the article here from Yahoo Finance. Litecoin is being ignored by retail while institutions quietly accumulate 3.7 million LTC. New reports reveal quietly growing positive signals. These signals form the basis for analysts to predict the price may soon break above $100. Institutions are accumulating 3.7 million Litecoin despite falling prices, says this article. According to data from Litecoin Register, by the end of 2025, treasuries and ETFs held nearly 3.7 million LTC. Can you explain the shift from retail interest to institutional interest? What happened in the last year?
Well, last year we saw the launch of the Litecoin ETF and also the treasury company LiteStrategy, right? So there was a few more ways for institutions to get exposed to Litecoin, the asset class. So we saw, as the report says, 3.7 million LTC invested by institutions into Litecoin last year. I wouldn't say it's a shift from retail to institutions. It's more about adding institutions to already retail interest in Litecoin.
Was that maybe your initial vision when you created this way back in 2011? Yeah, 2011. It was a while ago. And did you envision that at some point most of Litecoin would be used by large institutions?
Not at all. I mean, when Litecoin was launched in 2011, the last thing on my mind was institutional demand for Litecoin, right? It's more about, it's totally about retail, right? It was to address an issue with Bitcoin being slow and expensive and having Litecoin as an alternative. To be honest, like institutional demand on Litecoin didn't even cross my mind until like just a few years ago, right?
And many of these institutions held Bitcoin as a treasury asset, but Litecoin fundamentally is meant to be used as payment, given how much faster and cheaper it is than some other tokens. And so why do you think there's such an accumulation of institutions? In other words, what are institutions planning to do with Litecoin?
I mean, it's another asset class, right? So it's they're betting on the price rise of Litecoin. So given that Litecoin is really being used quite a bit for payments, and the current kind of market cap of Litecoin has lagged behind its usage, people are betting on it to catch up, right? So that's what I think is happening, and we'll see what happens this year.
Well, Litecoin's often called the silver to Bitcoin's gold. Can you maybe comment on that analogy?
Yeah. So throughout in past human history, we've used both gold and silver as money, and at the same time, where gold is more expensive and people hold on to it as mostly as store value, whereas silver is used for payments more often than gold. So the analogy is kind of that, right? Where Bitcoin and Litecoin go hand in hand to fulfill the monetary kind of transactions of people, where Bitcoin will be held and Litecoin will be more spent than Bitcoin. Because of the kind of the cheaper transactions and the faster transactions, it's much easier to spend Litecoin. If you're buying coffee, you're paying cents, right? Even sub-cents per transactions versus potentially $1 per transaction. So it wouldn't be very cost effective to buy coffee with Bitcoin, but with Litecoin, it makes a lot more sense.
The global financial system is rapidly moving on chain, and today's sponsor, Cool Wallet, is a name worth watching. Cool Wallet builds next-generation cold wallets designed for a world where real-world assets, payments, and savings live on the blockchain. Their flagship credit card-sized hardware wallets combine CCEAL6+ secure element protection, mobile-first usability, and a unique 2+1 factor authentication system that requires your phone, your biometric ID, and your card to approve every single transaction. So here's a Cool Wallet Go card. It's an easy-to-use, on-the-go, card-sized hard drive that stores your private keys and literally fits inside your wallet or purse. Activating the card is simple. It takes about 30 seconds. All you have to do is download the Cool Wallet app and follow the on-screen prompts. Let me show you now. Activating a new wallet is very simple. Simply go on the app, click on Add Wallet, and it's going to ask me if I have a card. Yes, I have a card. Every time you order a Cool Wallet Go product and package, it comes with 2 cards, primary and backup. It's going to ask me which card type, in this case, Cool Wallet Go. Notice how it pairs with NFC. Click on that, create a new wallet, activate primary card. Either of these cards can be your primary card. Simply scan the card by tapping it to the back of your phone. Success. And it's important to know that you need the primary and backup cards to be able to fully activate the entire wallet. So both of them have to be active. Now create a new pairing password. This is important for when you need to recover your wallet in case your cards are ever lost. Generate by card. It's going to ask me to generate a private key. Tap my primary card, start setup. Now it's pairing my private key to the primary card. Now that both cards are paired with the private keys and activated, the wallet is ready to go. As you can see, it's a brand new wallet, so it has no funds in there. Every time you put money in there and you want to transfer funds to another wallet, like this, for example, it will require you to scan and tap the card to the back of your phone as a security precaution. That's just one of the benefits of using Cool Wallet. It's very secure. Remember how I said to remember your pairing password? Well, if ever you lose the card, go to settings, go down, replace primary card, and it's going to ask you to enter your pairing password. That will start the process. So once you've activated the wallet, you can use the app to swap to other tokens and cryptos. All you have to do is first click on the manage icon on the app, add the crypto that you want, then go to the home page and click on swap, and the crypto you just added should be there. You can also send cryptos to another wallet, making peer-to-peer transactions instantaneous and frictionless. There's also an earn function that allows you to stake your holdings to generate yield. Cool Wallet also recently launched a breakthrough fiat on-ramp feature. So instead of going to a centralized exchange first, you can on-ramp directly to Cool Wallet. Users can create a bank account under their name and a fiat currency of their choosing that's available, wire the funds in, and have those dollars automatically converted into a stablecoin that's on-chain, directly into your wallet within minutes. With support for 40 plus mainnets, staking, lending, NFTs, and advanced clear signing protections against phishing and malicious contracts, Cool Wallet is positioning self-custody for mass adoption. To learn more, go to the link down below or scan the QR code here. And if you do use my code, you'll get a 5% off on your first purchase. I'd also encourage you to check out my interview with Cool Wallet CEO Michael O for more details on the product and why we need self-custody today. And he also explains in great detail how the security functions work. Link also down below. Was there a reason for why you decided to cap the supply at 84 million when you first created it?
Yeah, the general idea was that I made it 4 times more than Bitcoin. It's 4 times faster than Bitcoin. It just works out that way. So Bitcoin has a cap of 21 million. Litecoin has a cap of 84 million. The most important thing is that there is a cap, right? It's not something that gets inflated away over time. There's a fixed monetary cap of 84 million total Litecoins, and as we approach that, it kind of ensures that value goes up and there's no hidden inflation.
What was the? Can you just comment on the engineering behind why transaction fees are so low?
Transactions fees are low is kind of mainly because it complements Bitcoin. There's the way Bitcoin works is that the kind of if the kind of block constraint is capped and there are too many people fighting to get into a block, then people have to pay higher fees to get chosen by the miners, right? So Litecoin has 4 times as big of a block size as Bitcoin. So because of that, there's less fee pressure. So Litecoin fees remain low.
Moving on to you mentioned the Litecoin ETF earlier. So there's a few developments here. So for example, Strategy, which I believe you're involved with, recently made Litecoin its reserve asset, $100 million buy in August 2025. So that's cementing LTC as corporate hard money. The new Litecoin ETF, spot ETF, launched in early November. And I'm just wondering why, or whether or not institutional investors treat Litecoin as maybe a long-term commodity like Bitcoin, or do they see it primarily as a high beta play for altcoin season? Do you have any insight here?
I don't have too much of an insight here. I think it might be a bit of both. I think Litecoin being popular is because it has such a long track record of it working, right? So Litecoin, the network itself, hasn't gone down since I launched it in October 13 of 2011. So we're talking about close to 15 years of uptime, and that's a long time for a crypto space, right? Most of these newer cryptos have come out like the past few years. So having a track record of it working flawlessly, where people can send transactions on Litecoin network and having it confirmed in about 2.5 minutes is very important, right? So Litecoin just works as money, and that's very attractive to people betting on the future of Litecoin.
Okay, so I'll just give you a piece of news before I start asking the next question. So this is from Kathy Wood from ARK. She said that it's possible President Trump will start, sorry, buying Bitcoin for the strategic reserve before the 2026 midterms. Okay, so now we have in a situation where not only do we have institutional investors buying Bitcoin and alts like Litecoins, but we also have the government using Bitcoin in a strategic reserve manner. So my question is, if you were to build a crypto or just continue building Litecoin in 2026, what are the priorities and I guess user preferences that you would like to match in this current environment that may be different than 2011?
If I were to build a new crypto, or you're
Yeah,
talking
if
about
you were to build
Litecoin?
a new crypto, or even just continue expanding on Litecoin's capabilities, what are some of the consumer trends and user trends that are different and trending right now in 2026 that are different than 2011?
Um, like we touched upon, I think privacy is something that is very important today. So privacy, the reason why privacy is important for money is is one thing is financial privacy, right? So if I'm receiving Litecoin, for example, as salary, if everything is public, then anyone can see how much money I'm receiving, how much money I'm getting paid, and how much money everyone else is getting paid, and that becomes kind of tricky. So financial privacy is very important. If I send a payment to someone, they shouldn't be able to figure out how much I have in my bank account, right? So that's very important. Also, privacy leads to a fungibility. What that means is that if I'm spending money, I don't really need to. I shouldn't have to pick and choose which Litecoin I'm sending, right? Each and every Litecoin is equivalent to any other one. So without privacy, that becomes a problem, right? So we've had issues where people are sending Bitcoin to Coinbase or other exchanges, and then they get their account gets banned because the Bitcoin came from let's say like a darknet marketplace, right? So because of AML regulations, they don't like crypto coming from darknet marketplaces, and that makes it tough for you to use crypto when you have to kind of pick and choose your uh, the coins that you're sent. So I think privacy is very important in that aspect also. So in 2011, people didn't care anything about privacy. People actually thought Bitcoin was private because they weren't kind of very familiar with the properties of Bitcoin. But more and more recently, privacy has become quite a bit of a hot topic, and I think it's something that is crucial for crypto for money. So it's something that I'm gonna be working hard on making privacy kind of uh, quite making privacy kind of important in the space where
When you
people
say
actually care about it.
privacy, can you just comment on some of the characteristics that make something private? So, for example, there's been some tighter regulation around privacy coins. Dubai bans privacy token use on exchanges, tightens stablecoin rules, and crypto reset. Uh, we know Monero is banned in a lot of places already. So, how are you first working on making enhancing privacy features while at the same time making it government approved?
Yeah, so Litecoin does something a little bit different. Litecoin's privacy is opt-in. So we have a layer called MWeb where coins are more privately transacted on MWeb. It's not perfect privacy. So I would say Monero and something like Zcash has much stronger privacy. What Litecoin has is enough privacy for it to be, I would say, good enough. Where the most important thing is that the amount is hidden from other people except for the sender and recipient, right? If I'm sending you 100 Litecoins, for example, like no one needs to know that I sent you like 100 Litecoins. So only you and I, if we're transacting on MWeb, only you and I would see that I sent you 100 Litecoins. Everyone else would see I sent you something, and they wouldn't know how many coins were sent. And that's one thing that is, I think, one of the most important things about privacy is just hiding the amount. And then the other part about privacy is kind of trying to obfuscate the routing of the transactions. So I wouldn't want someone to see, for example, that I sent you anything, right? So Litecoin handles that in a certain way. It's not perfect, but it's good enough. So um, in Litecoin handles kind of government regulations better because we also have the main chain, which is exactly like Bitcoin. Everything is transparent, so you can move coins back and forth between the two chains. And for example, if exchanges don't support the MWeb side of things, you can easily um, peg out your MWeb coins back to the main chain and then send those coins in exchange, and then they can see everything. So Litecoin's opt-in privacy makes it compatible with government AML laws.
A lot of famous institutional investors have identified privacy as very important. For example, Andreessen Horowitz identified privacy as probably the most competitive differentiator in 2026 for cryptos. But why exactly is this trend important right now? Are we protecting ourselves against the government, hackers, or something else, some other entities? Like basically, why do people start caring about privacy more and more?
I think it's mainly it's the financial privacy, right? It's caring about keeping your wealth and finances private to yourself, right? So if everything is transacted in open, um, you lose financial privacy, which is important to a lot of people. It's kind of similar um, to emails, right? You don't want you don't want the government to be able to read every email you send, right? So there are privacy features to encrypt emails to prevent other people from seeing it. So I think it's kind of like the key, right? It's the idea that it's a it's a human right, financial privacy, in addition to like informational privacy.
The other threat that's emerging is, of course, quantum computing. So, what is the entire crypto industry going to do about this?
um, it's looming. It's something that the entire kind of finance needs to be concerned about, right? So, in terms of crypto, how that matters is that quantum computing could potentially steal coins from people, right? So if the currency is using, or the crypto is using algorithms that aren't quantum safe, then that's possible. So Bitcoin Litecoin has issues like that, where I think when the time comes, we can quite easily switch to quantum safe encryption algorithms to protect us. The key is that when that happens, people have to move their coins from current addresses to quantum safe addresses. So that's kind of the most important thing. I think the community will come together pretty quickly if and when it becomes a threat to switch over to new quantum safe algorithms.
Okay, if just from an engineering perspective, if that were to happen, would that affect transaction speeds and/or costs for Litecoin specifically?
Potentially, depending on how hard the quantum safe algorithms are, I would say yes. But I mean, it's hard to say how much it would affect in terms of speed and cost. But I'm not concerned about that at all.
Well,
Yeah.
the other emerging trend right now is not just government adoption of Bitcoin and cryptos, but also traditional financial institutional adoption of Bitcoin and cryptos. Banks like JP Morgan have already started looking into offering cryptos to their customers. And so, how do you think TradFi and DeFi are going to intersect going forward?
I think it's actually pretty awesome that we're seeing a lot of traditional banks starting to um, accept crypto and actually provide crypto services to their customers. I think I envision a future where you would hold crypto with your bank, just like you hold your fiat currency with your bank. Um, the thing about DeFi is that it's always an option, right? So you can always move your crypto to a decentralized network and do decentralized finance in addition to centralized finance. So I don't see that as an issue, right? It's kind of like you can choose it whether or not you want to. It's just like custody. You can choose whether or not you want to custody your coins yourself, or you want to custody your coins with an exchange or with some other central provider. So choice is really important.
Okay. So, what's next for the Litecoin journey? What are you working on next, and what are you focused on developing for Litecoin?
The key thing that I'm focused on Litecoin is utility, right? I want Litecoin to actually be used and not just something that is held in um, hoping the price rise, right? So, and we're seeing a lot more of that with Litecoin than with Bitcoin, right? People are actually spending Litecoin, using it to buy stuff. Um, as I said, privacy is very important, so that's something we've been working on with like the MWeb layer, getting more wallets to support MWeb, more exchanges to support MWeb, and more just acceptance and usage. Right, getting the thing about MWeb, like a lot of other privacy networks, is that the more people that use it, the more private it is, right? And the better it works. So that's one key thing that we're working on, just getting more adoption, more usage.
Just personal anecdote. I know friends who have told me, and this is not an endorsement or any kind. Charlie's not paying me anything, but my personal friends have told me I use Litecoin in my own transactions for cryptos just because it's so much faster and cheaper than anything else, and it's just easier to use. And so, when designing a crypto, how do you, just philosophically speaking, make something easy to use for the average person? And that could be interpreted in a number of ways.
Yeah, in terms of why Litecoin is easy to use is it's mainly because of the speed and the lower cost, right? So when I send Litecoin, it gets to the recipient faster. It just feels easier to use. Whereas with Bitcoin, 10 minutes could potentially become a long time. And it just, when I send Bitcoin, I kind of had to wait a while for it to get there. And also had to pay quite a bit more in transaction fees. So that makes it less easy to use. Um, and that's kind of like by design. Um, just trying to, initially, I was trying to make Litecoin just faster and cheaper pay network and easier to use.
Can you just comment on why it is that faster blocks are able to be processed for Litecoin?
It's actually quite simple. So there's um, the when Bitcoin launched, Satoshi Nakamoto chose 10-minute block size. The reason why he has to choose a more conservative, or he chose a more conservative kind of sort of 10-minute blocks, is mainly to reduce inefficiencies with mining, where the idea is that when miners are finding blocks, if blocks are too fast, like let's say blocks are every second, then there could be miners on one end of the world building up a blockchain that has 10 blocks, and the miner on the other side of the world building up a blockchain, not knowing about the other blockchain. And then when they collide, the longest blockchain wins. And that causes inefficiencies, right? Where miners will be mining blocks that eventually become obsolete. So choosing 10 minutes makes it so that there's enough time for miners to talk to each other and figure out which blockchain is the longest, and not waste time working on um, a chain that will eventually be obsolete. It gets more technical, but the idea is that 10 minutes is very conservative. So with Litecoin, I went with 2.5 minutes, which is a bit more aggressive, but from practical kind of consideration, it still works well without a lot of inefficiencies.
Well, how is Litecoin's proof of work system different from Bitcoin's?
Litecoin uses scrypt, which is a more memory intensive proof of work. The reason why, so the one thing is that it's different, so that Litecoin's miners don't are different than Bitcoin miners. So when you have a Litecoin mining machine, they can only mine Litecoin and Dogecoin right now, actually, because Litecoin and Dogecoin share the same proof of work. But being different from Bitcoin initially when I launched it made it possible. Also, being memory hard made it possible for people using their CPU to mine Litecoin at the time. In 2011, Bitcoin was already a GPU mine coin, and Litecoin launched as a CPU mine coin. It was very important at the time is for everyone to be able to mine Litecoin from the start, just anyone with a computer.
I believe there's already more than 70 million Litecoin in circulation, right? Um, yeah. So as,
Yeah.
as more and more Litecoins get mined and we get closer to the 84 million supply cap, have you considered miner rewards and incentives, and how will miners continue to actually, you know, profit or have
Yeah,
any
it's a good
financial
question.
incentive to stay in the game? I guess the same could be applied to Bitcoin, but that's further out.
It is. Yeah, so I mean, it's still about the same time frame, right? It's about 100
Okay.
years later when
Okay.
the rewards go to near zero. The general idea was that over time, transaction fees would overtake the block rewards. So there will be enough transaction fees in the network where miners will be paid by transaction fees. The interesting thing about Litecoin is that because we were merged mined with Dogecoin, um, Litecoin miners actually get paid in Dogecoin as well. And Doge has a constant um, supply in terms of the block rewards is the same over time. It doesn't go down. So in that sense, there's tail emission with Dogecoin. And because Litecoin and Dogecoin are merged mine, Litecoin miners also get this tail emission. So it will never actually go to zero, unlike Bitcoin. So it's an interesting experiment that deviates from Bitcoin, and we'll see how that plays out. But we're talking about like decades down the line before this actually have any effect.
And just on scaling, so some of the problems you highlighted for Bitcoin, people have tried to find solutions to those problems by using layer twos. And so, what are your thoughts on second layer solutions versus just scaling directly on the base layer for Litecoin specifically?
I think second layer solutions are important. I think there are trade-offs of scaling on the base layer, right? So I mean, Lightning Network also works on Litecoin. I think eventually, um, as Litecoin become more popular and more used, second layer and even like third layer solutions will become much more important.
Let's talk about AI and the advent of AI and how that's going to change crypto. Just more broadly speaking, I'm not talking about AI specific tokens or coins tied to AI projects. I'm talking about how AI fundamentally changes cryptography and whether or not we're going to get actually projects created by AI used for AI, and if so, how do things like Litecoin fit in that universe?
Yeah, I wouldn't. I would say it's like the opposite. It's not that AI changes crypto. It's actually crypto changing AI, because before crypto, AI couldn't be self-sufficient, right? AI wouldn't be able to create a bank account and make money and use that money, right? Because of traditional finance is not digital, right? But with crypto, AI is actually more powerful today, because you can imagine an AI bot that would make money or make Bitcoin or make Litecoin from doing stuff, right? And then using that coin to buy more hardware or whatever it needs, right? So AI becomes self-sufficient and potentially uh, it can do stuff without human intervention. And I think crypto makes that possible.
So, since you're an engineer by background, just walk us through the next 10 to 15 years in the crypto landscape. What does crypto look like in 15 years, just mainly from a utility standpoint? How will it evolve? How has it evolved already? And just extrapolating forward, how will it evolve in the next 15 years for utility?
I think the most important thing is that for adoption, crypto has to kind of work in the background, right? So when I started with Bitcoin in 2011, you kind of had to be very technical to be able to kind of deal with Bitcoin, right? Running the Bitcoin software on your computer and managing coins and stuff like that. Moving forward, the next decade or so, I'd see crypto becoming more and more kind of in the background, where people are using or spending money and holding wealth in crypto without having to think too much about like the algorithm or the private key, public private key. And self custody is important, and it'll become easier to self custody than now. So I just imagine that things will just become easier to use and will become more in the background. Similar to how right now, when you're using a credit card, when you swipe a credit card at a terminal, you don't really know like how many banks or intermediary banks get communicated to approve this transaction, how everything works in the back end. All you care about is that you're spending money and getting the goods and services you're buying, right? So that's kind of the important thing about crypto also, where we're going to move towards a world where you're spending crypto and storing your wealth in crypto without even kind of thinking too much about it.
All right, well, let's close off on your personal journey. So you started your computer science journey or career actually working at Google, I believe, one of your first jobs right after MIT. At what point did you start becoming interested in cryptos? Well, at first it was Bitcoin, and then shortly after you founded Litecoin. So you were considered an early adopter. What was the inspiration behind even looking into this space?
Yeah, I was working at Google at the time, and I ran across an article about Silk Road, which is one of the first darknet marketplaces. That the interesting about that article is it mentioned that the only currency it accepted was Bitcoin. It didn't deal with fiat, didn't deal with any other currencies. It didn't accept credit cards. All it did was accept Bitcoin, and I thought it was very intriguing about this kind of currency called Bitcoin that is much more useful on this marketplace. So I looked into it and I was hooked. And yeah, this was like early 2011, and then late 2011, I decided to kind of play around with the Bitcoin code and launch Litecoin.
And I think what were the biggest challenges as a founder that you had to encounter early in your career?
The thing about Litecoin is technically it wasn't very challenging, right? It's a fork of Bitcoin, so most of the hard work was actually already done by Satoshi. Uh, the challenging thing was actually kind of fostering the community, right? The early community that supported Litecoin, convincing exchanges to list Litecoin, and just getting Litecoin everywhere, right? So getting talking to exchanges, talking to other like wallets to support Litecoin. Um, Funny thing is that's how I eventually went to work at Coinbase.
Yeah.
And but the way that happened is I first contacted Coinbase about adding Litecoin, and the response was that probably in the future, but not right now. And then they asked me if I wanted to come in for an interview for a job, and the rest is history. Um, yeah, so early on, most of the work was just to kind of build a community, make sure Litecoin works, and getting Litecoin adopted and supported everywhere.
Well, I believe in 2017 you announced you sold most of your personal Litecoin holdings. Can you just comment on whether or not well, first of all, why you did that, and second, whether you plan to adopt any more Litecoin presently or in the future?
To put things in perspective, because Litecoin was launched very fairly, there's no pre-mine like a lot of other coins. What that means is that I didn't print Litecoins for myself. All the Litecoins I had were bought on exchange or mined, just like anyone else. So I didn't have a lot to begin with. But at the time in 2017, I felt like um, my actions, I was on Twitter a lot, and just talking about Litecoin and kind of supporting it. And I didn't want it to have a conflict of interest, or not necessarily conflict, but more like I didn't want people to think I'm just there to kind of promote Litecoin and make myself wealthy. So I decided to divest all my Litecoin holdings. But Litecoin is something I created and I still support it. I've been working on Litecoin ever since I launched it, right? So I haven't stopped working on it, but I do have a little bit where I kind of test things and still spend it. But I'm not really invested in Litecoin, so to speak. But in the coin, but I'm invested in the success of Litecoin, obviously. So I decided to do that. Just didn't want any kind of conflicts. Um, and yeah. Yeah,
I,
but
I
I don't plan to kind of buy more Litecoin or get
well,
invested in Litecoin again.
given Litecoin's success since 2017, do you regret that decision?
No, I think it was the right decision. I don't think Litecoin, the price would be any different if I was so invested in it. I think, yeah, I think it's Litecoin should succeed whether or not I actually have Litecoin, right? It's the creator of Litecoin shouldn't matter, right? The coin itself is what matters, right? Whether or not it actually works as money. If you're not using Litecoin just because I don't own any, that's kind of silly, right?
Great. Well, thanks very much. Let's just close off one final question. Besides Litecoin, are you working on any other projects, or is that still your main kind of project that you're concerned with currently? Tell us about what you're doing.
It's my main thing, but I also do like a lot of advising other projects. I'm on the board of Light Strategy. I'm working with them closely on what they're doing. Yeah, I do a lot of things in terms of like investing in companies and helping other companies, other crypto companies and such. But Litecoin is still my main thing.
Thank you very much, Charlie. Appreciate it. Where can we follow you in the meantime?
Yeah, I'm on X, Satoshi Light. That's probably the best place to follow me. And obviously Litecoin is on there as well.
Okay. All right. We'll put the link down below, so make sure to follow Charlie there. Thanks very much, Charlie. It was a pleasure to meet you, and appreciate you giving us your time.
Of course. Thanks for having me, David.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe.